Money, money, money. Soggy here though.
Bit us in the butt.
Be ready to walk away. Not on your favorite list?
No.
Did we learn something? Nobody likes an HOA. They haven't shut up since I parked. I'm afraid those dogs are getting out and getting me. Zillow was wrong.
Google was wrong.
The realtors were wrong.
The landowners were wrong.
We put an offer on a piece of property here near Gainesville. Stick around to the end of the video to find out what happened with that.
Now, thanks for coming back to see us. But if you're new, I'm Alice.
And I'm Larry.
And we are
Downsizing makes sense.
Like the penny. So about 4 years ago, we sold everything to travel full-time in this RV, and we don't want to do that anymore.
Have you ever thought about buying a piece of land, get exactly what you want in the area you want, the piece and size that you want, and then putting the home on it exactly what you wanted? Well, that's what we're thinking about doing now. Can we do it? I'm not sure. Not in maybe our budget.
But we are not experts. What we're doing is just sharing our personal experience because we actually have learned a great deal since we started looking for land, looking at mobile homes. So we want to share that with you.
Definitely not experts though.
No. Why are full-time RV travelers 4 years experience now after everything looking for land?
That is a darn good question. I think it's because this thing busted.
It's busted, it's broke, it's not towable.
And Larry's busted.
Larry's busted.
I definitely got some breakage going on.
If you want details, we have tons of videos about what's wrong with Larry.
And what's wrong with the RV.
Yes, what's wrong with the RV.
It's not just me.
True, for the first time, it's not just him. But the other thing is, I'm tired. Yeah. We have been traveling full-time for 4 years.
And we've done a lot of miles, a lot of states, a lot of national parks.
To Canada and back, to the West and back. These are 6-month trips, and like we're full-time. So yes, I need a break.
It just would be nice to have a little home to come back and just like, oh, we can just take it easy and rest for a couple of months.
Especially if Larry's broken again and the RV's broken again.
Like I say, if the stuff hits the fan, we need a place to go. So we're looking for land, but what kind of land are we looking for? That's the question.
And that is one of the things we've learned is we had to narrow it down.
It has evolved too.
It has evolved. But the number one thing that hasn't really evolved is we need to be in the Larry zone.
The Larry health zone. So we're trying to stay within an hour of the hospital that I have to go to a lot, which is cool. So an hour is a good zone around Gainesville.
And we talked about the Larry zone in our last video. The other thing is the size of the land that we want, and we have differed on this.
Yeah. I want 5 to 20 acres, let's say, but we don't really have the budget for that much. And the reason I want that is we just want space between us and the neighbors.
So we've gotten down to like 2 to 5, 2 to 3 acres. And again, it has to do with budget. We keep mentioning budget, but you know, that's important. And
it's the most important
thing.
The
most important. And we have tons of videos about budget, and it has to do with our 401k. We are cash poor. We're
poor, but not like really poor.
Yeah, we've got money in a 401k, but we can't use it. And there's videos about that. We'll put the links in the description. So budget also has to do with the type of land we're looking at.
So we could be looking at a piece of land that's got a little mobile home on it, something that we could maybe take that mobile home off and put a new mobile home on it. But that isn't possible because they want crazy money for a little piece of land with even an old mobile home. So that one's crossed off the list.
We could be looking for land with a house on it, but same thing. Prices are outrageous. And frankly, we couldn't really find, a small home because we're downsizing makes sense. We're trying to have a smaller home.
Plus, we want some more choices.
Yes.
So raw land is what we're after, which is what this video is about, searching raw land to find just that right piece.
But then raw land is complicated. Do you want raw land that is what they call turnkey? It could already have septic, power, and water.
That would be nice.
But then we get back to budget.
Those are a lot more money, because as soon as people do that to the property, it's improved, and improved land costs more money.
Or we could be looking at raw land that maybe has already been cleared, but again, budget.
Yep, because they've improved the land, they cleared it a little bit, that land value sometimes doubles in price.
So we are trying to find raw land
that's raw.
That has nothing done to it because of our budget.
But those are diamonds in the rough, and finding those diamonds is tough.
Or there's some problems which we're going to get into.
Okay, how am I going to find this cherry piece of property? Well, of course, I'm using Zillow, which has all the vacant land that is in the multiple listing service. And I use that with Google Maps to basically go out and scope out the properties and see them before I get there. But then I use another couple of websites. One is cheapeasyland.com, compasslandusa.com, and landmodo.com. And what these are companies that have bought up pieces of land, that got them cheap, and they're reselling them themselves off of that multiple listing service, but they're offering owner financing, which is very attractive to somebody like us that has, let's say, some challenges as far as getting a loan.
So why can't you trust Zillow? Because the information is often wrong.
Mostly wrong.
So one is lot lines. I mean, there was one property that looked awesome. They said it was like 5 acres, and then we looked a little deeper, and it was actually only like 2 acres. And often the lot lines are wrong besides that. So you really, really can't trust lot lines.
The other weird thing about Zillow is a lot of these properties, they're asking $50,000 or $100,000, and there's 6 pictures, and they're terrible pictures. And like, I go on eBay to buy a $5 toy, and it has 25 high definition pictures. Now, why they can't do that within Zillow, I have no idea. What is that with the realtors that not doing that?
I know why.
They don't want us to know what it looks like. They want us to get out there first.
No, because it's like Instagram. They're only putting the best pictures out there. So if there's only 3 pictures, that might be a signal.
But they're terrible pictures. I don't get it.
That's true.
Now, I use a combination of Zillow and Google Maps to get me approximately where it is. Now, with vacant land, a lot of times there's no address. It just has like lot number in the street. So you have to do a lot of investigation to find the proper property. So one way to do that, sometimes there's a sign, but very often not. There's no realty sign. Sometimes there's markers that mark the corners. That's nice when that's there, but a lot of times it's not there. So sometimes you just got to get into the property and then get on Zillow and look at the lot lines and actually walk the property while Zillow's open and walk the property line to know that you're in the right place.
Yeah, the other thing we've noticed on Zillow is they put that little picture of a house in the middle of a street. So sometimes they'll have a street view on Zillow. So you can use the street view and say, oh, they're talking about this piece of property.
Yeah, use the street view on Zillow, the street view on Google Maps. You just use a combination of things because sometimes it's like a little mystery, like which property, and a lot of times there'll be several properties that all look the same on the lot line map, but usually you can figure it out, but it takes some time. Now, sometimes when you look on Zillow, you're looking for a cleared lot, but then you get to the property and it's definitely not cleared. So obviously we're looking for lots that have a partial clearing so that we could put a mobile home or something like that. But we don't want it completely cleared like farmland or anything like that.
And that's the same with Google Maps, because you know how Google Maps is. We look at this beautiful wooded property on Google Maps, and then we go look at it and it's been totally wiped out, and we want trees.
Yeah, we want trees, but we still would like a little spot already cleared out for a mobile home, but that's like very hard to find.
The other problem is on Zillow is HOA.
Nobody likes an HOA.
Homeowners Association.
Bad news.
We don't mind one, but this is what happened.
I mind.
What happened to us is we found a piece of property, and we're going to talk about it later. So stay till the end for that story. But an HOA basically bit us in the butt.
Once I've got an area picked out for the day, I've got 5 or 6 properties located, I go out and I'm going to go walk the properties for the day. And I've done this probably 7 or 8 times where I've done 5 to 7 properties in one day. It's important to get out, get feet on the ground and walk it, because I've seen properties, so I'm like, I'm going to love this property. This is my property. I am buying this thing, and I get there and it's a complete disaster. So what I do is I get out, and no matter how thick the forest is, I make sure I wear boots that day, and I wear pants because the thickets are sometimes tough. I try and wear long sleeve because I have been scratched up doing this, because you don't want to just look at the front of the property and be like, oh, it looks good. You want to get to all 4 corners of the property and crisscross it. You want to be through the entire property if it's one that you really think that might be a good candidate.
And if you can, go and see it, because this is Florida, go and see it after a torrential downpour, because you're looking for the wetness of the land.
Yeah, in Florida, we got to really be wary about water. So you're going to be a little worried about the flood zone, but I look for signs that water has been there in the past. Places where you can tell the water pooled and then collected and left like a brim around the outside. You're looking for huge drainage ditches and things like that that are signs that like they got a water problem. I want to stay completely away. I want to stay high and dry. So that's really important. Another way to do that is to get the drone in the air. It's awesome having a drone. I do it on every property that I'm still interested in. After the walkthrough, I'll throw the drone up. I'm looking around. Mostly I'm looking at the neighbors, because at the properties that we look at, you might have a cherry property, beautiful, but on all sides there might be a complete disasters. Just, I don't want to get into what you see there, but it's nowhere that you want to live in some of these properties.
There was one that I thought was really great, but then we realized just like 5 minutes away was an RV park. Now, we stay in RV parks, but that doesn't mean I want to own property that close to an RV park. And the other thing is looking at the roads. Yes, Zillow will have pictures of the roads. On Google Maps, you'll see the roads. But again, after a torrential downpour that we had recently, we went to this one property that I wish I had taken Dramamine, because the roads were like this, and we were like, why don't they straighten the roads?
That's another question, to get out to the property and walk it, because you got to drive there first. And that comes to, if you do want to use a mobile home like maybe us, the drone can tell you where the roads are and where it's going to be hard for that mobile home, which might be 60 feet or longer, to get through those roads. And there's no way it was going to make it on that road that Alice is talking about.
I mean, they may charge you extra because they don't like the look of the road. And the last thing about going and walking the property and going to the site is stop and listen. Now, again, if you can do it on a weekend, just like at campgrounds, campgrounds on the weekends sound differently. And there were times Larry was FaceTiming me because I stayed behind and he was checking out properties. And I'm like, what is that sound?
You got noisy geese. So this property's out because of these guys right here.
Or I'm like, what is that sound? And it's like dogs
or chickens. Yeah, well, we didn't bring up FaceTime before, but that's a great way to share. If you really love a property, if you got a signal, get on FaceTime and share it with your partner, because that has been really interesting. Because sometimes, I had heard the geese the whole time I was there, and I guess I had gotten used to it. But she's like, what the heck is that noise? Yeah. And sure enough, it was they had hundreds of geese on their property. And then dogs, of course. Yeah. Sometimes I've gotten to properties and the sound of dogs, it sounded like they're a mile away, but it sounded like 100 dogs. And the other thing is that on the weekends, a lot of these properties are used by people as like their weekend camping getaway, where they just come with their car and their RV and just pile onto the property and just have a hootin' time and have fires and go crazy.
Fireworks.
And that's why when you go see these properties all the times, they're littered in beer cans and garbage and just whatever they felt like leaving behind.
So you really want to stop and listen.
Stop and use the ears. You're using everything. You're using your eyes and using your ears, you're using your brain, hopefully. Hopefully it's not defunct like mine, but use it all. So when I get out to these properties, I use my GoPro and get out there and I do the whole selfie thing because I want to share it with Alice later. But the other thing is that when you see 20 properties, you want to keep a record of it. So what I do is I pull out my GoPro, and then I show the screen on Zillow. I say the property address so that later on when I'm going through the video, I can, place where my brain was on that property. And then when I share it with Alice, she can do that. Now, you don't have to be a YouTube or have a GoPro or anything like that. Just pull out your phone, record, and either use a screen record or a screen capture of the Zillow property to note it in those recordings. This way, later on, you want to be able to go back and match up, because you get confused. Even with all this video and stuff that we've taken of all of these properties, we mix up the properties because it just becomes a blur after you hit about 20 properties.
It would be nice if Zillow had different colors on their little hearts, so we're like, okay, we saw this one, and you make it black because you didn't like it.
That would be awesome.
Or you could add notes. That would be nice.
Okay, so we got to the point where we really narrowed it down to one lot we really loved. We both discussed it. We'd both been out to the property together. We both walked the property. We talked to the neighbors. We were like, okay, this is the property. And this is where you get serious. And this is where I got on to the property appraisers for that county. Now, the one town we were looking in, that one town had 4 counties. It was
Melrose.
It was like the crossroads of it. So you had to make sure you're in the right county. Yeah. Get to that property appraiser's office. I called and emailed the property appraiser to get all the right information. And then I got all the parcel information. I mean, everything, all the details about that property, the past sale history, the size of the lot, I mean, everything.
But then it all went wrong, because this is back where we're like, Zillow's wrong, Google's wrong, the landowner's wrong, they're all wrong. Because this property that we had mentioned in our last video, we put an offer on, and thank goodness Larry did his due diligence. And like I said, you need to do the work because they're not
because
going
in
to.
Zillow and on their website, it says no HOA, no restrictions, do whatever you want, basically.
And guess what? Not only was there an HOA, there was a size limit. And like we keep saying, we're downsizing makes sense. We don't want a big home. So they wanted at least 1,000 square feet.
Right, and it had to be at least 24 feet wide, which basically is saying it has to be double wide. And we wanted to put a single wide, about 700 or 800 square feet. So that property was out, and it's very strict. I actually got the restrictions and covenants document. It's very clear. We could not put the building that we wanted to on that property.
So, this whole process is just like buying a home. It's very stressful. It's physically stressful, it's mentally, it's emotionally, but when you find that piece of property and you think you're set, and you were about to put money down on it, and then you find this out, that's why we're trying to save you guys from going through what we went through. If you check out the property completely beforehand, you don't get your hopes up and then get slammed back down on the ground.
We were this close to putting a chunk of money down on that property. Believe me, the people selling the property were on us. I mean, like constantly, put money down, money. But luckily we resisted until we were sure. And we could have lost the opportunity to buy a property that we really wanted. But you have to.
Thank goodness.
My buddy of mine said, basically, be ready to walk away from every property and make sure that the people that are selling it know that you're ready to walk away.
What we learned is like that old expression.
Did we learn something?
Please. We learned a lot. So basically, it looks good on paper, that expression. Well, it looks good on Zillow, and it's not. Yeah. So that's why we're talking about, look into everything, check all the information, walk the property, get that parcel info out, and all of that.
This is a very stressful, arduous process that has a lot of moving parts to it. And, if you're not stressed out going through this, then you are some kind of special human being.
So we are still looking for land. The other thing is, we said in our last video that we were going to look for a mobile home to put on the land. Now, this is going to be a whole separate video, but we had a situation. We went to Ocala to look at this place that I was super pumped to go see, because they talk about custom building,
custom mobile home, which
a
is
custom
cool.
mobile home. And I'm like, awesome. But after like an hour, I felt like we were yelled at by the head of the sales of this company. I basically ran out of the building and I bawled my eyes out. No, we don't have footage because I don't let him film me crying. But that is going to be another video because we are going to go over the whole.
That was the worst customer experience I've ever had in my life. I cannot believe salespeople who call themselves salespeople.
And they never apologized. We were like, I can't believe this happened. But that's actually one of the reasons we kept saying, oh yeah, we get a Barndo. But we're like, it's too expensive. But we're starting to think, you know what? Maybe
Barndo would be less because the mobile home buying process, they make it so complicated that they're trying to confuse you.
There's some hidden costs, like $37,000 on top of the cost of the mobile home. Yeah. And which again, we'll talk about that more, but we're just letting you know that we thought mobile home was
not so inexpensive.
Yeah, so we are seriously looking at Barndo's.
Barndo's looking a lot better right now.
Yeah, so keep watching the channel to see what happens next.
Speaking of that, so if anybody out there has bought land, raw land, especially in Florida, put their own home on it, whether it's a mobile home or a site-built home,
or a Barndo.
Especially a Barndo. If you have put a Barndo on your property, especially in Florida or North Florida, we definitely need to hear from you. Please leave that down in the comments. I can't tell you how valuable that information would be to us.
And if you have any tips that we didn't cover in the video, you can always message me on Instagram and Facebook.
Now, I'm also going to leave a playlist of this whole journey that we're going through, which is different than our regular full-time RVing adventure, but it's something that we are really interested in sharing with everybody because it is such a different experience for us.
We're still RVing.
If you don't want to miss the next episode, think about subscribing and click that little notification bell. And remember,
downsizing
doesn't, or
still
does, make sense.
Makes sense.